We're going to take a look at a dialogue written by Plato called the Protagoras. Protagoras was one of the Sophists, very famous Sophists of the ancient world. And in this dialogue, there's a myth that's told to explain Protagoras' relativism with respect to political philosophy. And let's read through it together and see if we can figure out what's going on. So it starts, once upon a time, there were just the gods. Mortal beings did not yet exist. And when the appointed time came for them to come into being too, that is, people, the gods molded them within the earth, mixing together earth and fire and their compounds. And when they were about to bring them out into the light of day, they appointed Prometheus and Epimetheus, those are, I guess, two of the gods, the demagogues, to equip each kind with the powers it required. Okay, so we're getting a picture. It sounds like a little bit like the creation story in Genesis that some of us who are, familiar with the Judaic or Christian Bible have heard, and I understand Islam also has a similar story. The creation story. Okay, well, let's go on. Epimetheus asked Prometheus to let him assign the powers himself. Once I have assigned them, he said, you can inspect them. So Prometheus agreed, and Epimetheus assigned the powers. To some creatures he gave strength, but not speed, while he equipped the weaker with speed. He gave some claws or horns, and for those without them, he devised some other power for their preservation. To those whom he made of small size, he gave winged flight, or a dwelling underground. To those he made large, he gave their size itself as a protection. And in the same way, he distributed all the other things, balancing one against another. This he did to make sure that no species would be wiped out. And when he had made them defenses against mutual destruction, he devised for them protection against the element, clothing them with thick hair and tough skins, so as to withstand cold and heat, and so as to serve each kind as their own natural bedding when they lay down to sleep. And he shod some with hooves and other with tough, bloodless skin. And he assigned different kinds of food to different species. Some were to live on pasture, others on the fruits of the trees, others on roots, and some he made to prey on other creatures for their food. These he made less prolific, but those on whom they preyed he gave a large increase as a means of preserving the species. So we see Epimetheus is handing out all the powers to the various species and trying to make sure they all survive, so giving them complementary characteristics, complementary strengths. Now Epimetheus, not being altogether wise, in other words, he wasn't the brightest crayon in the box, didn't notice that he had used up all the powers on the non-rational creatures, so last of all he was left with humankind, quite unprovided for, and he was at a loss what to do. As he was racking his brains, Prometheus came to inspect the distribution and saw the other creatures well provided for in every way, while man was naked and unshod, without any covering for his bed, or any fangs or claws. And already the appointed day was at hand, on which man too had to come out of the earth to the light of day. Prometheus was at his wit's end to find means of preservation for mankind, so he stole from Hephaestus and Athena their technical skill along with the use of fire, for it was impossible for anyone to acquire or make use of that skill without fire. and that was what he gave to man. That is how man acquired his practical skill, but he did not yet have skill in running a city. Zeus kept watch over that. Prometheus had no time to penetrate the citadel of Zeus. Moreover, the guards of Zeus were terrible, but he made his way by stealth into the workshop which Athena and Hephaestus shared for the practice of their arts, and stole Hephaestus' art of working with fire, and the other art which Athena possesses, and gave them to men. So he went and stole these fires and these practical skills to use fire, use tools, etc., to man. And as a result, man was well provided for with resources for his life. But afterwards, so it is said, thanks to Epimetheus, Prometheus paid the penalty for theft. So let's see where we are in this whole story and what the moral is supposed to be. One more passage. Since man thus shared in a divine gift, first of all through his kinship with the gods, he was the only creature to worship them, and he began to erect altars and images of gods. Then he soon developed the use of articulate speech and of words, and discovered how to make houses and clothes and shoes and bedding, and how to get food from the earth. Thus equipped, men lived at the beginning in scattered units, family units probably, right? And there were no cities, so they began to be destroyed by wild beasts, since they were altogether weaker. Their practical art was sufficient to provide food, but insufficient for fighting against the beasts, for they did not yet possess the art of running a city, of which the art of warfare is part. And so they sought to come together and save themselves by founding cities. Now when they came together, they treated each other with injustice, not possessing the art of running a city, so they scattered and began to be destroyed. So Zeus, fearing that our race would be wholly wiped out, sent Hermes, bringing conscience and justice to mankind, to be the principles of organization of cities and the bonds of friendship. Now Hermes asked Zeus about the manner in which he was to give conscious injustice to man. Shall I distribute these in the same way as the arts? These are distributed thus: one doctor is sufficient for many laymen. And so with the other experts, shall I give justice and conscience to men in that way, or shall I distribute them to all?